Hello and welcome to a pro basketball show with me, Andrew Willett. We're in the midst of WNBA coverage and excited to bring our content to you. You can catch a pro basketball show on streaming services such as YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify with live broadcasts on playback. Make sure to follow us at APBShow on social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram, with more coming soon. Without further ado, a pro basketball show. Hello and welcome to a pro basketball show. We are getting set and ready for the WNBA season, and today we are going to talk about a team that is looking to increase its championship window, and frankly, outside of everything else, the most important thing, BG is back. That's the Phoenix Mercury. And to talk Mercury, welcome into the show from Arizona State University. He is a Wolf and Luke assistant producer, writes and co-host for the State of the Sun Devils podcast and Arizona Sports, as well as DevilsDigest.com, play-by-play for Neighborhood Sports Network. He does it all, covering the Mercury beat for the Next Hoops. That's Jesse Morrison. Jesse, how are you?
Good, just going from one job to the next today, as usual with me.
I figured as much. That's a long resume you got going all at the same time right now.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you taking the time for us.
Of
I'm
course.
excited to get into the Mercury today, and we'll go right into it here. But hearing good things out of camp, a healthy Diana Taurasi is great. Obviously, as mentioned, the most important thing, Brittany Griner is back and safe with her family and back to basketball for us this season. What's your gauge on how things are going in the desert?
Obviously there's just a lot of storylines around this team. You've got, Skylar Diggins-Smith away from the team right now on maternity leave. We don't really know what's going to happen with her. They've been very vague about that. Obviously the biggest storyline overall is having Brittany Griner back. And, she played on Friday in their preseason game. Some moments where she looked like one of the most dominant players in the world. And then some other moments where, a little sluggish on defense, didn't finish around the rim on a couple putback attempts that, I think that she would have liked to have back. But it's great to have her back. Most importantly, in my opinion, it's just kind of like the icing on the cake if she's able to, be a great basketball player again. But it's just great that she's, home and safe with her family.
Definitely couldn't agree more on this end. I think the whole WNBA community is so happy to have her back, let alone to, like you said, watch her play basketball. But that's what we're going to talk about today. That's what we're going to look forward to this season, is some Phoenix Mercury basketball with Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner. That's a great thing. But first, I want to take a step back to last season. It was kind of a tumultuous season with a lot of challenges presented to the organization as a whole. Obviously, the Brittany Griner situation. But nonetheless, they sneaked into the postseason for a short-lived series against the eventual world champion Las Vegas Aces. Finished the regular season at 15-21, 8th best offense at 100.7 offensive rating, and the 8th best defense at 104.1. And surprisingly, they are the 8th seed. So what were some of your takeaways from that 2022 season?
I mean, the biggest takeaway, I think, from that season last year is just, unbelievable that they made the playoffs with everything going on. Vanessa Nygaard, the head coach of the Mercury, on Friday talked about how basically everywhere they went on the road was the BG game. So it was like where they would show up and, the other team would, give like a shout out to BG or whatever. It's just obviously that had to be just like a constant reminder right before you have to play a basketball game that, oh my gosh, this is what a horrible situation Brittany Griner's in. And so, they were able to push through that. And then Skylar left late in the season. But they just had some players step up, Shea Petty, among other players, and were able to just power through. And yeah, their record wasn't great, but there's only 12 teams in the WNBA. And if you're one of the top 8, you can make the playoffs. And they did that. And, it's really impressive what they did last season, in my opinion.
I agree. Just going through Brittany Griner being detained, it's a horrible situation for her, but for the players who are on the Mercury, that's tough. That's heavy on their minds as they still have to go out and try and compete. Like you said, every game
Yeah.
is something else on the road. And then other things that went on in Vanessa Nygaard's rookie season as a head coach, Tina
Yeah.
Charles not working out.
Yep.
As you mentioned, Skylar Diggins-Smith leaving at the end of the season. A little bit of drama with Coach Nygaard and
Yep.
Stidid around the All-Star break. So obviously, like losing doesn't help with all of these very reasonable reasons for a lack of success. But what did you think about her performance last season, and why do you think she's capable of turning things around this year?
I think that she made rookie mistakes last season, like the especially the All Star game thing. I think you can't say that. It was one of the you've got Skylar Diggins Smith going to the All Star game. She's one of the best players in the world as well. So you've got to be able to celebrate that. It's not just Diana Taurasi that's a great player on this team. So especially that was a rookie mistake. Overall, I think, I mean, obviously she was also managing just a crazy situation last year. So to be able to get the team to the playoffs, that's big. But yeah, the real just one rookie mistake I would say was the Skylar Diggins Smith All Star Game thing. And then with this season, I don't know. I don't know what to make of her. I again, it's not all the coach. It can be management, and I don't know how much depth this team is going to have. So I think that might reflect poorly on Nygaard. And if you go over to the NBA side, you see what just happened with the Phoenix Suns and Monty Williams, and you could say his in-game adjustments were bad and stuff, but a lot of it was that the Suns didn't have enough depth. And again, Phoenix, the Mercury, they have a really good starting lineup, but who knows about their depth? And they do have some players who've had some injuries, especially Diana Taurasi, who will be 41 years old next month.
Yeah, I guess from there, I was curious about health, but I think I want to jump into the off season first.
Yeah,
And starting with this offseason, I want to start with who remains, and that's Sophie Cunningham. Skylar Diggins Smith, obviously, as you mentioned, on maternity leave. You've got Megan Gustafson, excuse me, Shea Petty, Diana Taurasi, Brianna Turner, and Brittany Griner, some of the main returners for this team. That's a pretty significant retention of talent for a
yeah.
team that just made the finals a couple of years ago. How crucial it is, do you think, keeping that core of talent is not only for this team's success in 2023, but for Brittany Griner to come back to and be familiar with?
I mean, I think it's important because that's the players that were on the team when they went to the finals in 2021. And so to have that group of players, that BG can just slide back in and fit right back into the group that was, really kind of made a surprise run to the finals in 2021. Um, yeah, I think that's going to help her for sure be more comfortable next season
And
or this
then
season. Sorry.
no worries. Absolutely. As the offseason kind of got kicked off with a bang with that trade for Michaela Animuere, a 24th third round pick, a 25 second, and a lot of moving parts in this deal. Picks all over the place. We
Yeah.
saw Marina Mabrey going to Chicago, Diamond DeShields from Phoenix to Dallas. What were your takeaways? How did you think Phoenix fared in this move?
I mean, I think it's good. I think they addressed what they needed to do. Skylar Diggins Smith kind of played point guard for them, kind of a combo guard, but it's really their point guard with DT at the two. And I think that you needed a point guard, and that's what Mariah Jefferson can provide. She had a pretty much not a career year last year, but basically her second best season in her WNBA career. So she can slide in and not be Skylar Diggins Smith, but be close enough. And so that to me was the one move that I thought was really good. And then as far as Aniwede goes, I think that who knows, because she really good rookie year and kind of got lost in the shuffle last season. So seen her limited time in the preseason. She got to camp late because she was playing in Italy. So I think she's going to make the team. But it also kind of wouldn't shock me if she doesn't, which I think that
Ooh.
a lot of people haven't talked about, and I don't think that that's that likely. But it also, I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, she didn't make the team. Like it just, who knows?
Yeah, so I guess that move becomes kind of an issue if you're trading Diamond to Shields and the player that comes in, Michaela Onyenwere, is not able to make the roster. Is that then a bad move for this team?
I mean, no, because what ends up happening there is that I think that means that they really, really, really love Kadi Sissoko from USC
Ooh.
because she's just been talked about by a lot of different people, Coach Nygaard, Diana Taurasi, just people have raved about her in camp. Now, I haven't really seen it on the floor in the first game against Seattle, unfortunately, because you know they can't televise WNBA preseason games for some reason. Wasn't able to watch it. She had a great game. Who knows how she looked though, because can't watch it. But I was able to see her play on Friday in the home game, and I don't think that she really knocked my socks off. But yeah, if they think that she is really good, she's got 2 inches on Onion Way. Uh, Kind of a similar player, so we'll see. We'll see. So I think that could be a positive actually, but I don't expect Onway to not make the team. I just wouldn't be surprised.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
So I have high hopes for Animuere as someone like you said had a great rookie season. I watched that. I was high on her coming in and New York Rookie of the Year just 2 years ago. As well as you mentioned Mariah Jefferson. I think she could make a huge impact, like she did last year for Minnesota, where, like you said, she really had one of the better years of her career, and hopefully that stands to stay for her heading into this season. But you start to talk about kind of those end of the roster cuts. There are going to be some tough cuts for this team because they're already down pretty low. I think around 13 or 14 players.
14 players right now. 14.
Who do you think are some of those tough cuts to get it down to 12 or even 11?
I think they'll end up with 11, just how their salary cap's working out this year. And then they will have some like replacement players because of Skyler. So they might have 12 on the roster, but like 11 playing. Um, I think that Sam Thomas is going to be cut, who played the whole year last year. Was not really in the rotation during the preseason game. She played, but she was not like first group off the bench kind of uh, player, or not that she wasn't first off the bench. I don't really remember from Friday, but she didn't play significant minutes with the second unit. And then I think that the other tough cuts could be Shook Sutton. She's looked really good though. I don't know what they do. Avina Westbrook they picked up. Who knows what they're gonna do with her? So I think it kind of comes down to those three players. Jenny Sims, I thought was a bubble player, but she started off the intro video on Friday. So I was like, does that mean she's on the team? What does that mean? I liked what she brought to the table last season. But yeah, I think those are kind of the players that you're looking at. And then Kadi Sissoko, as I mentioned, rookie 3rd-round pick. I think that she's also on the bubble, but I would lean to making the team there. And I do think Onion Way is going to make the team. But again, who knows? The WNBA is a tough league, and some really good players can get cut, and you never know. So the fact that she got to camp late, the fact that I don't know if I saw greatness out of her in the preseason game on Friday. So who knows? I think it comes down to those players that I mentioned, though.
Yeah, and I guess you mentioned Kadi Sissoko, and that's kind of the last part of this off season before I asked you to kind of grade this team's off season. But 2 third round picks, that's really tough to judge a team. for such, I guess, minor selections at the end of a draft. You mentioned all those tough cuts, but how would you grade this team's draft and offseason as a whole?
The draft, I'm gonna say like a C, just because it's two third-round picks and one of them's been cut. And the funny thing though is I didn't expect Cotty to be the one that was really good. So if you remember watching the tournament, Miami and Destiny Harden, like she was all over the place. They beat number one seed Indiana. I believe that USC and Cotty Sissoko lost in the first round. They were a 10 seed. They kind of barely got in. Um, so I was expecting Harden to be the one to come out here and really impress at camp. Very early in camp, she got cut. So, um, yeah, so I'd grade it a C based off of just like, the player that they drafted first is the one that they cut, and they really like Cotty. It's just interesting to me. Just interesting.
It is, and I guess that kind of even having a third round pick threatening to make the roster, like you said, probably a good sign, definitely a
Yeah,
good sign for this team. And I think in terms of Animuere, Kadi, as you mentioned, and Mariah Jefferson, I think all in all, that's a pretty good offseason. Without Skylar
yeah.
Diggins-Smith, that hurts a little, especially with the depth
I
up
just
top.
think that I just think that the depth, the bench, just there's a massive gap between the starters and the bench, and you kind of want like a gap. A gap's okay, but not like the gap that they have, which is quite a gap. Like there's other teams that are just going to be way better on the bench, like Vegas, for example.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's get into that. I think with who do you see as this team starting lineup? Obviously, way different last year without Brittany Griner, Skylar Diggins-Smith at the end of the year. So yeah, who do you see starting for this team?
Jefferson, point guard, obviously DT at the two. Um, Sophie Cunningham, if she's healthy, she got hurt on Friday. Um, I I follow her Instagram, so then she she was walking around in a leg sleeve on her story, but she looked fine. Like I didn't seem swollen or anything, so I think she's okay. I'm gonna follow up later whenever the next time we're allowed to talk to coaches. But yeah, so I think that you're gonna have Sophie Cunningham at the three. Then you're gonna have Brianna Turner at the four and BG at the five. So that's solidified. I don't think that that's gonna change unless Skylar Diggins-Smith comes back at some point in the season. But they one of the reporters on Friday asked if she had her baby yet, and Nygaard wouldn't even answer that question. Said it was up to Skylar to say that. So I my guess is that she hasn't even had the baby yet. So it would be
Yeah.
quite the turnaround to have her even play and then there's the whole thing of does she want to play for Phoenix? Who knows?
Yes, yeah, that is a huge question as well for this team. But as that starting lineup stands right now, I was curious if Sophie Cunningham fit into that. Who do you see as the depth pieces around the edges? I know you like clearly depth is an issue for this team.
Yeah, depth is an issue. Megan Gustafson, I think she'll kind of back up BG. Shea Petty, if she can, she says she's been making really good progress. She hasn't played in the preseason. I haven't seen her practicing. She'd be like the sixth player off the bench. Um, and so she'd be the best player for them off the bench. But I don't know if she's going to be healthy. I don't know if she's going to play this year at all. Who knows? She ruptured her Achilles in August. That's a quite the turnaround. And the depth changes completely if she can play. She averaged double digit points, had a career year last year. I believe she averaged double digit points. It was close to double digit points, even if she didn't. But anyway, great year for Petty last year. She'd be like the sixth player. And then after that, I don't know. It's very thin. It's a very thin bench. Aninwede, maybe she can return to 2021 form. Maybe Sissoko, maybe Sims, but it's really a toss up on the bench as far as who's going to step up. And it was noticeably a rough go on Friday.
Yeah, yeah. Well, So,
But Shook Sutton's looked good. Shook Sutton, she's
all
looked good.
right, all
Yeah,
right.
I will say that. Didn't
That's
really
a
get, as Nygaard pointed out on Friday, didn't really get a fair shake her rookie year. It was in the wubble. It was she had 12. She played 12 games. Said she's gotten a lot better. Nygaard did so. Who knows? She played really well against Seattle. So we'll see. She could be a good piece at least until Petty comes back.
all right, all right. That to be positive for this team. So it sounds like they're relying a lot on some of the star talent that they have. Obviously, no Stiditz, but Brittany Griner in her first season back. What can we expect from her? What are the expectations for her in her first season
So
back? Excuse me.
she looked like, as I said at the beginning, flashes of her old self and then some rust. I think she'll just steadily get back into the groove of things. I think from the first first couple of weeks, it might be a little bit of a rough go of it. But going forward, I think she'll round into form. She's obviously still got the skill set from what she showed on Friday.
So I'm curious as well about DT and what the Mercury can rely on her for. But I guess that brings up the larger question for me is what are the expectations for this team heading into the year? And depending on those, can DT live up to that at this age?
Uh, well, DT looked really good on Friday. She's the best player of all time. Um, she's still pretty good. She's
Yeah.
not 2014 Diana Taurasi, but she's still really good. And so I think that if if every if everybody can stay healthy, which is the big if, I think that they're like a 4 or 5 seed. Their goal, DT hasn't said this, but other people have, is to win a championship. Um, so I think their goal is to win a championship. My expectations are mid-tier playoff team.
All right. All right. I think I'll take that. I think there are a ton of teams right now just hovering in between that 4 to 9 sort of range, maybe even 4 to 12 at this point, with a lot of optimism heading into the season. But I think I'm right there with you for this Mercury team. I am hopeful, with, like you said, a lot of storylines going into the season. But excited for what we can see in Phoenix this summer here really soon. I do want to touch before we get to some fun questions on both sides of the basketball. Offensively, as you mentioned, DT is still looking really good. Brittany Griner being back, some uncertainty around Skylar Diggins-Smith. Will she come back at the end of the year? Lack of depth. Mariah Jefferson likely to run the show. How is this team going to generate offense?
I mean, you got to go through uh, the paint. I think you've just got to kind of make sure that BG is involved. And I think that's kind of an old school philosophy to just kind of throw it into your big, but she's just so much bigger than most players in the league that it's a good idea. And then as far as the rest of the team, if DT is healthy, she's going to play well. So that's, I think she's still a good option. Scoring wise is your kind of your, I'm just going to play ISO ball and score on you kind of player. But then Jefferson and Griner have to get the system too. So that's something that I think will be just to keep an eye on, is just if they can get the system. New
Absolutely.
players, new sit Aniwede as well. New players, um, with a new coach for them is what I meant to say.
Sure, sure. Yeah, that is kind of an underrated aspect. Not many players have played for Coach Nygaard. So it is a lot of new for this team. And with all the uncertainty we've talked about, a lack of depth, it'll be interesting to see. Lastly, on the defensive side, this is a team, as I mentioned, eighth last year in defensive rating, but an obvious hole down low without Brittany Griner. But what do you see being the case for this defense? Can they improve in 2023?
If BG looks better than she did on Friday, sure. It was a preseason game. Who knows how hard anyone was going? So I don't know. I think that they will be a pretty poor defensive team for the most part. Uh, but they'll be able to recover based off of some block shots from BG, and I think 8 to 10 range and defensive ranking. That's probably what I would look at.
Yeah, I'm hopeful maybe Mariah Jefferson can come in and plug some holes on the perimeter, and then yeah, Brittany Griner down low. That's a hope for this team. But yeah, I think we're around the same range in terms of expectations for this team. So let's do some fun predictions for this team. Get right into it. You said right around that 4 through mid-tier, so 4 through 8 playoff team for this squad.
Yeah.
What's your win-loss prediction for the
All right.
season?
I'm gonna say, let's say 23-17.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right, especially for that range of team.
Yeah.
Right around 500, a little bit better is where I'm at too with Phoenix.
Yeah.
For this team specifically, who's the MVP of the 2023 season?
Uh, Sophie Cunningham,
All right. All
if
right.
she's healthy, if she's healthy,
I love that
she
prediction.
she can shoot the lights out.
That she can, and I'm
Yeah.
very curious how that helps with Brittany Griner coming back. A lot of spacing for this team. I like that pick.
Yeah.
Up next, most improved player on this team.
I think one's tough. I might throw out Jenny Sims. I think
Okay.
Jenny Sims could be a most improved player. Now, I don't think her numbers are going to pop off because I don't think she's going to get a lot of minutes, but I think that she will show out a little bit more in those minutes that she has. Yeah, I'm going to go Jenny Sims.
I'll take that. I don't know. You mentioned Sutton, and as
Yeah,
well as Mateo Anwede returning to form could be an option there.
I don't know how I
Uh,
feel about most improved from like 3 years ago, though. Can somebody be most improved who hasn't played last season? I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know, and I don't know if she's going to make the team. I'm a little more confident in Jenny Sims making the team, but I could
okay.
be wrong. Could be
Okay.
wrong.
I'll take that. And then you mentioned Shea Petty would be the best player off the bench. Who do you have for the sixth player of the year for this roster?
Um, it's really tough on this team. But I'm gonna go Megan Gustafson. I think she'll have a pretty good year. BG's gonna, I think, need a little bit of rest. At least starting out, getting back into full on WNBA condition after a season off. So I think Megan will play a little bit more. So I think she'll have a good, really good year off the bench.
Okay. And then I guess lastly, I open it up to newcomer of the year because it's hard for a rookie to make the team in the W. It's just a tough league to make. But there is one rookie. Would you go with her for the rookie of the year? Or would you have someone else as a newcomer?
I'm gonna go Mariah Jefferson. It's pretty easy here. I think she'll fit in pretty well on this team. I think that what I'm hearing out of camp is that she's looking pretty good with the team and they like her. So I expect 10 points a game from her, 4 or 5 assists, kind of what she did last year.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a fan. I hope to see Mariah Jefferson do some good things. I know kind of a pass first point guard, but I think
Yeah,
could really work well in the pick and roll, and I guess off ball with DT running a lot of offense as
for
well.
sure.
All right, I like that pick. And lastly, some fun superlatives for this roster, starting out with the unsung hero.
Unsung hero. I'm gonna go because I do think she's gonna make the team. I'm gonna go Kari Sissoko. She's just got a great attitude. And even if she doesn't play a lot, I think she might be the unsung hero. Bench energy. Uh, Somebody that is going to always keep it positive no matter what is going on this season. So I'm gonna go Kari Sissoko.
I'm happy to hear about her development for sure.
Yeah,
Up next, class clown for this roster.
Class clown. I mean, BG is just, she hasn't lost her humor. Especially, coming back with the first press conference, calling Diana a fossil is, it's got to be BG. She can be serious, but she can also be the funniest person in the room. And so I'm going to go BG.
I love that pick. I did happy to hear that as well. And lastly, I don't think this one's even a competition, but the best trash talker on this team.
I don't know. I think it actually is a competition. It's Diana Taurasi, but I think it's Diana Taurasi against the refs. I'm not sure it's Diana Taurasi against other players, whereas I think Sophie Cunningham might be someone that is going to get under some other players' skin. Now, real quick, a little bit of a detour here. The DT versus the refs has already started in the preseason. She was just going at a ref on Friday, and I was just like, D, it's preseason.
I know. That's awesome to hear. I can't wait to watch that as well and just be a little bit annoyed, but you gotta love it. From like you said, the GOAT. We'll just say here on this Phoenix Mercury preview, that's the GOAT. And
I think she's the GOAT. I mean, a lot of people would say Sue Bird. Look at the numbers. I know there's more championships from Sue, but I'm gonna go against the whole ring culture that we have in this society, and I'm gonna say that DT is the best player of all time.
Exactly. We're talking about a best individual, and that we can't bring up team accolades in that. I'm right there with you. But let's run with that.
Yeah,
all right,
for sure.
All right, Jesse. Any other takes you want to get out before the 2023 season gets underway?
No, just follow my work on the next. I'll be at the game in LA on Fridays, so probably the only game I'm traveling to this year, but hopefully it's fun. And then I'll be at the home opener, which is going to be a madhouse and a crazy scene there. So I'm excited for that.
All right. And can you tell people where they can follow you? I know you said the next. Yeah.
You can follow my Twitter at Morse Code, MORRSCODE, with an underscore after that. And yeah, the next. It's the nexthoops.com. That's how you can find my work on the Mercury.
Awesome.
So yeah, check me out there.
Awesome. Jesse Morrison, thank you so much for joining a pro basketball show. Excited for the Mercury this season.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into a pro basketball show. You can catch a pro basketball show on streaming services such as YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify with live broadcasts on playback. Make sure to follow us at APBShow on social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram, with more coming soon. Until next time, I'm Andrew Willett. Thank you for tuning in.